Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WP Roundtable. Today, we've got a great guest on who we're going to ask her all sorts of questions about somebody else. And that's all I'm going to say about this.
Nice.
Kellen?
All right. Did you even say your name? It was
I
so
don't
quick.
care if I said my name. It's right there. They can read it. If they're on the podcast later on, if I ever get around to making that.
That was just so quick. I don't know. My name is Kellen Mace. I am happy to be on tonight as well with another great guest. I am a developer from the east side of Michigan, soon to be 10-up engineer. I'm really excited about that. I'm on the countdown now. Mark, how about you next?
Hi, I'm Mark Benzicane. I am with serverpress.com. We make desktop server, which is a really awesome thing to do local web host development, and I am thrilled to be here again tonight. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for being with us. My name's Kyle. I'm from Jackson, Michigan, the greatest city on the planet. And I make stuff with WordPress every day at a little company called Real Big Marketing that I co-founded. And I'm really happy to be with you all today and to learn more about our awesome guest, Miss Angie Meeker from Columbus, Ohio. Angie, do you mind just giving a quick introduction about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Angie Meeker from Columbus, Ohio, and I provide digital strategy for small businesses, and oftentimes that includes WordPress websites. And I'm also the organizer of WordCamp Columbus, which is July 17th through 19th here in Columbus.
That's very cool. We're going to be talking a lot about that because we're definitely interested in that WordCamp and about your business as well. So the first thing we do when we start off the show is everybody's going to share their quick picks of the week. So that's just a little something that you want to share with the audience that is topical, useful, you want people to check out. It can be just about anything. So my quick pick of the week is a podcast. I forgot it for a second. A podcast that I've been listening to that's really, really good. It's called The Art of Value by Kirk Bowman. And you can learn more about it at artofvalue.com. Follow Art of Value on Twitter. And there's even a talk or two by Kirk Bowman on WordPress.tv, if you look for him. It's a really awesome podcast for anybody who does pricing or bidding or anything. Anybody who's a freelancer who does contract projects. Really not web exclusive, in my opinion, but it's very valuable and useful listening experience. So check it out.
It is a good podcast. And for those who listen to the Matt Report, I believe the guy from The Art of Value has been on Matt Report at least once before. So if you listen to that, you've probably heard him once. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool.
And Matt Medeiros has been on Art of Value as well. That was a really good episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I can go next. I don't have a new pick of the week. Since last week, I said I'd come back after doing some testing around with Animaker, and my end result is I think it's cool. I don't think it's quite ready. I know it's still in beta mode. One of my biggest issues was the characters. They're like there's 2 on the free version, but you can only get up like 6 characters right now. And if a lot of people were using this to build the videos, product videos and such, it'd be real easy for people to start recognizing the same character over and over again. They've got a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of other stuff. But otherwise, it was. I'm going to say there's a learning curve to it, but I wasn't incredibly steep. I think anybody could figure it out. It would just be that curve of figuring out how to produce more quickly these videos. And otherwise, I'm going to say 1 thumb up, I guess. And hopefully, if they get some more characters, it'll be even cooler. So that's my review of last week's quick pick.
My pick of the week, and it's because we installed it today, and I'm already in love with it. Is we just launched our new website a couple weeks ago, and we're using Easy Digital Downloads by Pippin, which is awesome. But we just discovered, just added today, a plugin called Checkout Fields Manager, which allows you to add all kinds of custom fields to your Easy Digital Downloads. And it's pretty cool. So it's allowed me to get all kinds of data that I wasn't able to get before. So I really appreciate it.
Well, and mine is code.org/studio. So once a week, my husband and I go to my daughter's second grade class at her elementary school, and we teach computer class. And halfway through the year, I told the teacher, I said, we're going to learn how to build video games. And she was like, do it, go for it. And we started out using Tinker, and the kids have gotten kind of accustomed to Tinker, but I just this week found Studio, and it's much simpler than Tinker. I heard my daughter last night talking to her aunt up in bed about Tinker and code, and she said, yeah, we're building our own video games. And it's like, you have to tell it, if character 1 does this, then, or if this key is pushed, then character 1 does this. If this key is pushed, then character 2 does that. And I mean, you can flip over and see the code view, and it's just, they're like learning conditionals and all of this sort of thing. It's super, super cool. And they are crazy excited to build a video game, which they're totally going to do. So that's it, code.org/studio.
That's really cool, Angie.
It's fun.
Have you ever played around with Scratch?
Yeah, actually, Scratch was the first one I found, and then I found Tinker. Scratch was still kind of hard. Then we found Tinker, and now I wish we had started with code, because it even has online and offline lessons. So we could have started at the beginning with a curriculum, really.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. All right, I'll dive in next with my pick of the week. This is one of those plugins that's kind of set it and forget it, but it's become kind of a standard of mine when I'm building a new site to just slap in there.
Betterify.
No, not Betterify. I don't want my websites that good, right? Just okay is all right with me. No. And that is a plugin for free on the WordPress.org repo. It's called No Page Comments by a fellow Michigander developer, Seth Alling. But let me paint you a scenario. So you're a web developer, designer, whatever else, and you've put the site together for a client and gave them kind of the crash course on how to create new pages, posts, etc. All right. So then you get the first call from somebody in the company saying, "Yeah, I created a new page, but then there's extra boxes at the bottom for comments. Why are people going to comment on my page? That sounds like it's a blog thing." You explain to them, well, yeah, but you can disable that. Here's how. And then a week or two later, you get a second call from the second client at the company who says, I have these users commenting on the bottom of a page. I don't know why that is. Can you turn it off? And you tell them, yeah, here's how to do it. You go into that particular page and turn it off. So long story short, you can, with this plugin, you can just set it so that all future pages that are ever created have comments off by default. You can still enable them if you ever wanted to for a page, but they're just off by default, which for me, for all my clients I've ever dealt with, probably it makes the most sense to have it that way, to have the comments default to off. You can also go back in time and turn off comments to all pages in the past, but where it really kind of shines in, I don't know, is a time saver, I think, is for any future pages. It just turns them off by default. So check it out if that's a good set it and forget it plugin for you and your clients.
Awesome. Those are some great picks. Thanks, guys. And Seth is a good friend of all of ours, and he makes great plugins. And I've used No Page Comment lots of times. All right. So we want to learn more about Angie, so we're going to break into our questions here. Angie, you ready for some questions?
Do it.
Do it. Okay. All right. Let's hit you hard. Let's start from the beginning, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Give us the backstory a little bit, if you will. I'd love to know before WordPress, before your current business, what kind of things were you doing professionally, and then how did that segue into taking that entrepreneurial leap?
So I was a pastor before this, and was a youth pastor in addition to doing well, depending on the church I went to, they called it different things. It was either like membership or it was assimilation, which sounds like very Borgish, I think. Is that what it's called in Borg? Anyway, so my job at those churches was either the youth ministry or to help people get connected to the church, like with the advertising of the church through when they first came to visit the church to helping them get connected to whatever group or ministry in the church they wanted to be a part of. And so I when I was a youth pastor, we went on a retreat, and I was doing this obstacle course with the kids, and I cracked my head on the log. And a few weeks later, I started having seizures. And I couldn't be really a youth pastor anymore because it kind of depends on you being able to be spontaneous with kids and go drive them around and meet them places, and I couldn't drive anymore. I wasn't allowed. So I decided, well, probably youth pastoring is not for me anymore. And around that same time, I got married, and my husband and I moved to northern Iraq to do some community service work there, like with the nonprofit. And when we came back from Iraq, I just realized I didn't really want to work in the church anymore. And so I thought, well, what skills do I have that I can transition to the business world? And I had done a little bit of website development. And I mean, like, it was probably on Blogger back then, or maybe even like GeoCities. I'll be honest. It was that long ago. So I'd done some of that for the churches, and just began transitioning. Like somewhere along 2006, I learned about WordPress.com, and then somewhere in 2008, I found out about .org, and it just kind of went on from there. You know how it does. Like someone goes from .com to .org, and then they move along, and that's kind of how it happened. So we started building websites for small businesses here in Columbus, first using .com. Before I even knew about .org. I didn't know it existed, but I heard about this thing called WordPress and that it was better than Blogger, and I could have pages with it. And that was the stuff, man. That was the shit when you could have pages. So we built pages for companies, and that was so cool. And you could like have menus and things. Anyway, so then we built a website for a barbecue company and on .com, and the next one we did after that was .org, and that was kind of it. I think we bartered a few websites along the way for things like a garden and a party or something like that, but that's kind of how we got started, and that was back in 2008 is when I would say we officially started something. Then.
All right.
I don't know if you're hearing comments, but I'm sure our guests or the viewers would like to know the same thing that Mark would like to know, which is if you were a Borg, which number of how many would you be?
I don't even know what a Borg is. I'm going to get kicked out of like Nerdland for this, but I don't even know what that is.
Your assignment for tonight is to watch
Trek,
every Star Trek Next Generation there is. That's what you got to do.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, before you do that, we've still got some more questions for you.
Right.
Probably my assignment too, but that aside. So Angie, tell us a little more. I want to know a little bit about some of those clients, the clients that you've served, and what kind of businesses that you've worked with along the way. And if you want to give kind of like the whole progression over time from the beginning to today, that'd be interesting to hear. But what sort of businesses were you providing services for in the beginning? What kinds of companies? What did they hire you to do? And how has that changed over time? So yeah, just talk about your clients.
Yeah, when we very first started, like I said, it was the very first company that we did a website for was a barbecue company that was, I mean, he was like doing barbecue out of his backyard, and he just wanted, and doing a little bit of catering for friends and things like that, but he didn't have a way to tell them what his menu was and that sort of thing. And so I think I found him on Craigslist, honestly. Like, I feel like half of the WordPress world found their first client on Craigslist. But so I found my first client on Craigslist, this barbecue guy, and it was, I think we got paid total like $200, and I thought that was fantastic. I was like, I can't believe somebody just paid me money to build this thing that it hardly took me any time at all. And of course we look back on that now and we're like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. He's still using that same exact website. It's on WordPress.com. He's still using it. And we did some others, like just still small business ones like that for like a bakery and a cleaning company. But they were, you might not even call them small businesses. They were really they're micro businesses. They're 1 and 2 people shows. And that's been a lot of our clients have stayed with 1 and 2 people businesses, that we've increased our costs and our offerings along the way. So I think somewhere around probably 4 years ago. What is it now, 15? Yeah, somewhere around 4 years ago, we started just getting a different type of client, someone who knew a little more of what they wanted. They still were not the client who I could say, what are your goals for this site? They would still have no idea. They still just knew, I need a website, and can you build me a website? I don't really know what I'm going to use it for, but I know I need one. So, and then I would say probably 2.5 years ago, we started transitioning to talking with clients first about their goals. What do you need this to do for you? And when you approach a conversation like that, it changes the client entirely. I mean, clients who don't want to sit down and talk with you about their goals for their business and how you're going to help them with their business through their website or online marketing, we don't really want those clients anymore. Like, I want to know that what I'm building for someone is going to help them and be productive for them in the future. And so that was, like I said, that was probably 2.5 years ago that we started moving towards more goal-oriented clients. We've done, I'm not at liberty to say the largest company that we've done, but it was a big company, and we were really excited about it. And I'll be happy to talk about how the project went south somewhere along the way. But we were really crazy excited about the project in the first place, and the folks who were heading the project have since approached us to still do work for them. So I think it might not have been all our fault, but that's a strange introduction, I know, but there you go.
Okay, so I've got a real question for you here. Aside from go and watch Star Trek, if you were to go back and meet that Angie again, what advice would you give her? What things would you tell her to change or keep on doing?
Yeah, you know, I would say probably if I could look back on it, and I think this is probably true for a lot of folks, I think that 2 things. I would say stick with what you know you do really well. Like, you're going to have lots of opportunities to be distracted along the way, so stick with what you do really well. And also, you know a lot more than you think you know. And so don't be afraid to show that. Don't be afraid to show that off in a lot of ways. Like, don't be timid about it. So those are my 2 things.
Angie, I understand from some reconnaissance work I was doing on you that that your husband is now working with you. Is that right?
So he is, and it's been a sort of interesting transition. His background is in nonprofit management and education, and we last year sometime decided that he didn't love his job that he was doing. He's not being paid very well in the first place because it was just a tiny little, well, not tiny, but it was a small nonprofit here in Columbus. And so I said, you know what, just stop, just come home, work with us. We'll be fine. Just come help me somehow. And as he's been home over the past year, I think even the last time I did an interview with someone, this would not have been true, but even over the past year that he's been home, I think he's realized he doesn't really want to do that either. So now we've gone through like our branding workshop with him to say, okay, what is it that you want to do? And he has certifications in like job and career coaching and helping people figure out like what are you good at and what burns you out even within what you're good at, and how can we help you find the career that's best for you, and even find a position within that career that's going to help you get really excited that you can stick with for a while. So so now he's transitioning to doing that, and that's, you know, I think the interesting thing is when we have the freedom to do that. And that's not to say that we're like Scrooge McDuck money. That's not what I mean. But, you know, I think WordPress has afforded us the opportunity to say, go take some time and figure out what you want to do, and we'll be okay. But it was nice. For a while, it was nice because he was helping me look at my systems and my processes and figure out where can I extract myself and insert other people. And before, I just didn't. I knew all of those things, but they were in my head, and I had a hard time getting them down on paper. And just being able to spit it all out to him, and then he go and create some systems around that was really nice.
That's cool, Angie. I'll dive in next here. I want to backtrack just a question or two to your most terrible failure that you referenced. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear just you can see where I'm going with this, but kind of the two-part question that we like to ask a lot of our interviewees, and that is, at this point in your journey, at this point in your career, what sticks out to you as one example of like one of your greatest successes, what you think went really well, and then one of your greatest failures, and why, what you did to kind of mitigate the problem when it was there, kind of staring you in your face, and also what you do now to prevent similar things from happening.
So the one I'm most excited about and most proud about was it's a children's healthcare nonprofit here in Columbus that we started working with about a year ago, maybe even a year and a half ago at this point. They first came to us, their e-commerce on their site was broken, so they weren't able to take donations, which they're an international nonprofit, so it was kind of a big deal that was broken. And so they said, can you fix it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And, it takes nothing to put up a working donation form. I mean, not nothing, but it's not hard. So we fixed it, and they were just so pleased. And the form that we created for them as well was not just a typical donation form. So it was kind of their dream form. They had looked at some other really large international nonprofits and said, gosh, if we could have that, that'd be amazing. And, with gravity forms, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And so the donation form that we put up, compared to their old donation form when it was working, they've increased donations like 40%. So they were super excited about that, and then came back to us and said, will you do our site redesign for us and redevelopment? And we did, but for me what was so exciting about it was that it was the first client where we worked through our branding workshop with them that included branding and user goals and business goals and prioritization of features. It was the first time that we worked through that with a client instead of just trying to figure it all out ourselves. And the end product ended up being so much better because of it, and they're so happy with it. And there's a roadmap for where to go forward that they're already on board with because of that. So what made that really good for me was the branding workshop and being able to do that with them. So the project that went the worst was about also a year and a half ago. We probably started it right around the same time. And it was for the really large company. It was a large business social network. I guess that's the best way to explain it. And they wanted to transition all of their static pages and all of their blogs to WordPress from a proprietary CMS. And but they also have the sort of proprietary social network part of their site. They weren't going to transfer to WordPress. They were leaving that in whatever it was before. And just wanted to move the rest of it. And I told them ahead of time, I said, if you are going to need integrated logins, like between that social network and what we're building, I'm not the one to do that for you. I can find developers who will do that for you really well. And they said, no, we're not going to need it. And then by the end of the project, they were like, oh, we needed this, and it changes everything. And it was just craziness by the end. And I don't know. Even looking back on it now, I don't really know how we could have changed that. But it was really bad towards the end. It just felt like the whole project had fallen apart. And having said that, they used what we built. And it's on their site now. It's live on their site now. And I look at it, and I'm very proud of the fact that we built that and that they're using it. But it was their marketing department had not talked to their in-house developers, and the marketing department was driving when really the developers needed to at least be in on the conversation, and they weren't in on the conversation until literally like 2.5 weeks before launch. And it's a really big company, and so to not bring them in until the very end, I didn't even know they existed. I thought they didn't have in-house developers, and that's why they were having it done outside. So it was a mess. It was a crazy madness.
Is that an example of scope creep then? Is that what happens? Like how could they say, yeah, I know on the original proposal, these bullet points were listed, and we said this, this particular thing didn't need to be done, but now it does. Did that happen? Did you hit them with a increased price as a result, or?
No. Because at the end, their own developer said because in the beginning I had said if you need this integrated login thing, and the integrated login thing also affected the content of the pages that were being displayed and what we would have built if the users logged into the network, then different pages, different content appears on the WordPress site. If we had known all of that in the beginning, we would have pulled in some really amazing developers, and they had the money for it too. We would have pulled them in, and we would have done that from the beginning. But they said no, like no, we do not need that. And so towards the end, then when their developers sort of got wind of everything that was happening, they were like, well, of course you need that. Like, how could you possibly? I mean, one of them said to me, I just wish they had never touched any of this. How could they not know that we were going to need this? So in the end, what happened was we gave them the completed WordPress site and theme and content and all of that, so content structure and all of that, and their developers finished up the integration and that sort of thing. But also their developers didn't know WordPress, and I think that was the reason that they were farming it out in the first place, because I mean they didn't know anything really about WordPress. Nothing. Like if I said something about WP config and HT access, and they were like, what? And the HT access part, they should totally know that, but the WP config, I was like, really? How can we not know that? And you guys are moving half of your presence over anyway. So yeah, it was a mad mess. And as crazy as it sounds when I'm talking about it, that's exactly how it felt. And you know what? People don't talk. I'm not I cannot be the only person in the WordPress world who's had a project go crazy south. But people don't talk about it very much, right?
We talk about it all the time here. As soon as we go off, we start talking about our own stories.
That's right.
We just make you do it live on the air.
That's right. So, but you know what was really positive during that time was that I was, even at that point, in my mastermind, and so to have Curtis McHale and Justin Satan and Kirk, the person you talked about earlier, and Carrie Dills, to have them along saying, here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, have you considered doing this, even to finish out this project or to move on, was really helpful. So.
Yeah, we've all had those projects go south. I'm ashamed to admit I've probably had more than 5. So, Angie, you've brought up your branding workshops a few times. What was the evolution of that product for you, and how does it work in its current state?
Yeah. Well, so all roads, well, not all roads, but some roads lead back to Matt Medeiros, and Matt had a guest on his show named Jose, and this was back when, kind of back in the beginning of the Matt Report. And Jose runs a I'll call it a branding school. I'm sure he has some term that I should be using, but where he teaches developers how to work more like an agency. So, like for me, I don't come from a development background. I've never worked in an agency. So a lot of the processes that are in place at even a small agency, I just don't know them because I've never been around them before. And so he came on the show and opened up about what separates, what is the added benefit that an agency provides that most freelancers don't provide their clients, and it was branding. It was, and when I say branding, I don't mean like logos and things like that. It was the process of talking with the client about who are you, who do your people say that you are, who do you say you are, who are your users, what are their goals, what do you have to provide them in order to help them meet their goals, and what are your goals, so we can take all of those things, and who are your competition, and this sort of thing, and how can we take all of those things and mesh them together, so that when you build a website, you're not guessing what's going to be successful. You're working on what the client has told you they are and what they need for success. And so he talked about it on that show, but he also had a course at the time that walked you through all of that, and it's fantastic. I mean, I think a lot of even well-established WordPress developers would do well to go look up the school, SKOOL, and really watch the videos and absorb as much as they can from that. But anyway, so that process that Jose taught, we've just internalized it and use that with our clients. And that's what the workshop is. It starts with who are you, who do you say you are, who do your people say you are, and then moves on to user profiles and user goals and business goals, and then competition. And we take all of those things together, and from that then we can begin to build style tiles and wireframes and even work on other aspects of their business if we need to. Does that work? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we've actually gone back and done it with Matt. Like I think it was earlier this year for the Conductor plugin. He was having some issues of kind of some alignment. People were wondering, like, what the heck is Conductor? Do I need it? And this sort of thing. And so I said, Matt, have you done that workshop? Because he uses it too. And I said, have you actually gone back and done that for yourself? He said, no. I said, let's do it. Let's do it. So we did that together. And
yeah, that was a really powerful episode. I just got to say, I quite enjoyed it. It was long and detailed.
It was long.
But it was great. Very, very useful.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I can see how that would be very, very valuable to people. So on the subject of branding, I want to learn a little bit more about this. So I do bidding and pricing and client consultations stuff all the time, but more on the technical side. So I'll always come in and ask what seem to be obvious questions and things about technical requirements and desired functionality and all this back-end stuff, and and there's obvious things that I'm going to address, I know there's marketing, there's a good chance that you're not very mobile friendly, and I'll try and deal with that, and just all these modern development things that concern me. So tell me a little bit about some of the cliche, typical, standard stuff that you deal with and address when you're looking at branding, or when somebody has branding issues, you walk in and say, I know I'm going to probably have to deal with this. These are classic problems everybody has. This is just like the big hits every time.
So the very, very first thing that I see is that I can say to that person, who is your end user, who's your end customer, and they will not be able to answer. If you can't say, my end user is, and I don't just mean like my end user is a photographer, but I mean describe that person, talk about where they are in life, what they're trying to accomplish personally, so that you can help them get to wherever they're trying to go. I would say most businesses, especially, well, not especially, but including most WordPress businesses, especially plugin and theme authors, they don't stop. They do not think in that term. They think of, how can I explain the technical benefits of this product to the person? They don't think in terms of, how can I position this from what this user is trying to accomplish, and then the technical benefits are kind of they're secondary to describing how I'm going to help them accomplish their goals. So that, honestly, that's the very first thing that I would say, is that most businesses, they have not clearly identified their user, and so they can't help that user accomplish their goals because they don't even know who they are, let alone what their goals are. And then after that, I would say next, like, we talk with customers about what are the ways that they can increase revenue, efficiency, and awareness through their online marketing. And again, just helping clients think through each one of those three areas. I think a lot of businesses are just overwhelmed with online marketing in general. I mean, that's before you even get to the technical details. They just don't even know what's the next step they should take. Does that make sense? So helping them think through, okay, let's talk about revenue. What are some ways that we could increase revenue on your site? What are some ways we could increase awareness, and then efficiency too? I think those are probably the two biggest things that I see, is that they don't know who their end user is, and even if they did, then they don't know what they are trying to accomplish online either.
That's really good information, and interesting that, and I'm glad that you can just sum it up like that so simply. But these are very typical issues that everyone seems to struggle with so so commonly. So you did walk through this, and I think a great example would be to listen to that episode of the podcast of Matt Report that you walked through this. But maybe you could talk just a little bit about, there's this problem, you address it for everybody. What steps do you go through? How do you come to a real concrete solution or a resolution of this issue that almost everybody seems to have?
So did I drop out, or did everyone else?
No, everything's fine for me.
Good on my end.
Yeah, good on my end.
Did we lose Angie?
I think we lost Angie.
Oh no, sad.
Oh.
All
This
right.
is going to be one of our best episodes too. Get her back.
Yeah.
Get her back.
Hey.
Get her back. Get her back.
We're gonna take this brief intermission to tell you about. What are we gonna tell you about?
Betterify.
Render. Render.
Render's not as cool as Betterify.
This episode of WP Roundtable brought to you by Render.
Yeah, check out Render. Actually, we're working really hard on the 1.1 release of Render. For those interested, renderwp.com. It's a plugin we made that I'm pretty proud of. We're working really hard on the next release. It was a pretty big overhaul of the plugin. We learned a lot about it, and that's going really well. Yeah. What else is new with you guys?
So wait, hold on. Are you? Do you have your target audience in place?
My target audience for Render? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a great question. I really need to go through Angie's workshop because we're trying very hard to solidify it. And I think it's a similar problem to what Matt Maderos experienced with his plugin, in that I think there's several people who could find it valuable, because it's something that helps users manage their content or insert complicated things into their content easier without, working with a developer or learning how to use things like shortcodes. So that could be valuable to the actual content creator, or to, say, the developer or webmaster responsible for the site who wants to empower their content creator to do things on their own without interrupting them. So anyway, we got Angie back.
Very complicated to me, and I'm glad we got her back to make sense of all that.
Yeah.
We have a train that goes by our house, and it seems like this spring, like winter and spring, it knocks out our internet for 2 seconds. So sorry about that. Okay, so tell me the question one more time. How do we get? I think what you said was, how do you go from those ideas to something concrete that you're going to develop?
Right. I just want to understand that process real well, because it sounds like you deal with it all the time. Every customer you go in there, you're asking that question. They don't have a good answer. What steps do you walk through to take every one of those customers to a successful solution?
Well, so here is, let me give you an example of how one of those a user goal translated into something we had to have on the website. So we worked with a law firm a couple of years ago. That also right when we were getting started doing this process with our clients. And in the process of talking with them about who their users were, they told us our users are the criminal. They did criminal defense. They said our user's the criminal before we did our branding workshop. And they said, so that's who we need our website to be focused towards, is the criminal. Well, when we sat down and we talked with them, we said, who is the person who actually signed your contract? Who actually pays you? They said, well, it's the mother or the aunt of the criminal, typically. And they're typically well-to-do. Because the family has come to that aunt and said, can you handle this for us? Can you go take care of this? Because you're the smart, successful, well-to-do one. And so first of all, that by itself changed even how the website was going to look. If you're designing for a criminal versus designing for a well-to-do aunt, that's totally different. So that is one small example, and then even as we got further into that with them, we talked to them about, okay, so talk to me about this aunt's goals. What are her goals as she interacts with you? They said, well, her goal with us is to be able to go back to her family and look like she knows what she's talking about. she needs to go back and have answered already all of the questions that they're going to ask her after she meets with us. She's got to go back and know her stuff. And I said, okay, so how are you going to equip her to do that? They said, well, in our first meeting, we asked her these 58 questions, basically. And I was like, well, hold on. Why are you doing that in your first meeting? Why are you asking her all of those questions in the first meeting? You need to give her those questions ahead of time so that when she comes to you, she's already feeling like she knows her stuff. Well, that did two things. One, it gave them an opt-in. That gave them opt-in bait. Give us your email address. We'll give you all the questions that you need to know to take back to your family, which begins to get into some of the implementations of the site. And granted, that's not a very complicated one, I understand, but it also got into helping them increase their efficiency, because as they talked with us about some of the inefficiencies in their business, it was that first meeting with clients. That first meeting, they're going through all these questions with folks, and the folks were not prepared to answer those questions in the first place because they didn't know them ahead of time. So we said, look, you've got to get this information out ahead of time. It's going to help that lady accomplish her goals of going back to her family and feeling more prepared, and it's going to help you decrease the time that you're spending per client. Excuse me. And so it's a small example, but we would never have known those two things if we hadn't worked through their user profiles with them and their user goals, and then also talked about their inefficiencies of, gosh, that first client meeting is taking a really long time. So those are small examples, like the Children's Healthcare Organization that we're working with. One of their primary user goals was when a child is first diagnosed with the disease that they deal with, the family sort of goes into shock, and they need to know X, Y, and Z about the disease itself, but they need to immediately connect with other families who have the same disease. So when we redid their site, then part of what we built for them was not a family locator, because there's some HIPAA issues around that, but some family profiles where families could come on and they could share their story. They could say kind of what city they're located in, so it's not too specific, it's not breaking HIPAA stuff, but but all of that flowed out of the user goals, instead of just saying, well, let us just build your website. If we hadn't stopped to talk to them about who are their people and what are their goals, we wouldn't have known that we needed to build this out in such a way that they were going to have these family profiles. And we build it in such a way that later, if they decide to lay Buddy Press on top of it and build out their own social network, they'll be able to do it, and it will be integrated with those family profiles. So those are the two examples I can think of right off the top of my head. I don't know if those are what you were looking for or not, but maybe. Yeah,
those are great. I'm always interested in other people's discovery processes and stuff, and seeing how you work through those, because that's actually really good. I never really considered that. Yeah, I look at the problems that the business might have, but that's it.
Well, in that process too, that up to the point where we're developing style tiles and wireframes, we can do that whole process as a product by itself for companies. So they can come to us, like Matt, for example, and that was not a transaction between he and I, but it could have been. He could have come and said, you know what, we have some marketing mismatch, we don't know what's going on, can you help us? And just doing that discovery process by itself can help clarify things for businesses where they need to go forward, and can also help you figure out what is actually needed in this project to be a success, instead of building something and then finding out later that it didn't work the way that they wanted it to.
Yeah. Angie, listening to you talk about all this, I'm kind of curious as to your vision for where you want things to go with the company in the short term. I was just thinking about the name of your company is Angie Meeker Designs.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's so much to it, right? Maybe design is what kind of lures the client in, because that's what they're looking for primarily, and then you're the one that kind of takes them a step back and talks about everything they're desiring for their business, kind of what the game plan needs to be before launching into design and building a site and things like that. So there's quite a lot going on, I think. But what do you think you'd like to kind of progress to, or what's the next step in your mind?
Well, so the part of, so you're right, Angie Meeker Designs, though, it does, it's very limited. It's just, it makes it sound like it's just me, because it is mostly. My husband, too, is involved a little bit. But so here, so let me say this. The hot conversations lately, like over the past 6 months, so I feel like I have been chatting about these with people much longer than that, the value-based pricing stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of what prices to match the value that you're providing. But what they don't tell you is when you're going from like single me, not single as in not married, but little me, one person me, and raising your prices and raising your prices, you end up getting a client who expects more out of you than what you might get otherwise. And these systems that have to be in place to handle that client, it's more typically than what one person can do. So I can't any longer do the branding stuff, the strategy with clients, plus build and design and launch and test and all of that sort of stuff that I've done. I've done all of that for our clients in the past, and I can't do that stuff anymore. And so sort of at the coming into this year, I realized if I'm going to keep doing this, I have to have a team to work with me. And I will be really honest, like in the past 2 months or so, I even now I question, like, do I really want to do that? Do I want to build out a team of people? And no one talks about the fact that you might not want to build out a team of people. Like, raise your prices, do bigger projects, farm out the work, do what you're best at. That's great, but what if you don't want to be an owner of a company like that? Then what? That's not a conversation anyone's talking about, really. So. Yeah. So I say that to say, like, when I was a pastor, I didn't want to be a church planner. I didn't want to be the one that oversaw all of that, That didn't mean I wasn't good at my little niche part, but I think if I could choose to do anything myself and farm out the rest of it or be a part of a team, the stuff I really like doing the best is that branding workshop stuff. It's that whole process. And then pass the rest off, the design and development, to other people who do that better than I do. So, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what's in the cards for the future. So, I think this year we're going to do some more teaching and classes. I've done that in the past and really enjoyed it, and I think we'll probably do some of that this year too. So,
Angie, if you find somebody having that discussion, that one you were just talking about, the whole business, please let me know, because I'm running into the same thing right now, thinking, I'm getting into this, trying to do it all, and I'm not. I need to step back. So either we can have that conversation sometime, or if you find somebody having it, let me know.
Yeah. And the thing is this, I can do that. I can manage people perfectly well. That doesn't mean that I necessarily want to. So that doesn't mean also that I don't want to be part of a team. I love working with a team of people. So again, there's I don't know. I don't have all the answers yet, and I don't think most people do. So
it might be purple.
Nice.
Hey, Angie, shifting gears just a little bit. I know that you are the organizer for WordCamp Columbus, which is coming up. I believe you mentioned it at the beginning of the hour. And kind of curious as to how that came about and how it's impacted your business since you started doing that.
Yeah. So this will be my 6th year. No, wait. WordCamp Columbus has been in Columbus for 6 years, and I took it over 4 years ago. So this will be my 5th year, I guess it is, something like that. The 2 years before I was involved, 2 other guys started it here in Columbus, and they did a great job, but the issue was that they sort of turned it into a social media conference, and this was right around the time that I was discovering WordPress.org, so I barely call myself a developer now, let alone back then, but I knew enough to hear people in the WordPress community like Jeff and some of those guys up north talk about how WordCamp Columbus was a joke because it was all about social media and podcasting, and how it would never be really any value to the WordPress community. So those 2 guys announced they weren't going to do it anymore, and it's either someone needed to pick it up or it was just going to stop. And I had been to one of those 2 years or 2 or 3 years under them, and really had a great time. And so I said, I'll do it. I've organized conferences and stuff in the past, so I just picked it up from them, and I promised myself, like, we will never be a social media conference. I will try to keep it as focused on WordPress as possible, and so that's what we've done. And as far as how it's impacted my business, I'll just say, if you're thinking about, if you want some visibility in the WordPress community, organizing a WordCamp is not a bad way to get it. And even in your city, because your name becomes attached to WordPress in your city. So I can't say that maybe over the years that I've organized it, we've maybe gotten 1 or 2 clients out of WordCamp. So I'm not saying like it was a boom for business or anything like that, but it certainly lends some credibility to your company when you say, well, I organized this camp. I might not be the most rock star developer, but I know the people who are in this area and beyond.
So Angie, tell us a little bit about WorkCamp Columbus 2015. What are you excited about? This is going to be you've got some experience behind you. Yeah. What's typically special about this compared to like other WordCamps, and what are you really excited about this year? Why should I buy a ticket to go to WordCamp?
Yeah. So I think that we were the first camp to do an all-day WordPress 101 workshop the first year that I took it over. I think we were the first camp in the country to do that. Because I remember at the time, Andrea was like, wow, that's a really great idea. You should do that. So anyway, but having said that, we've put like 350 people through that 101 now, but we've never offered them a 201. So we've never had a condensed place to learn about like the page templates and actions and filters and hooks and custom post types and everything that's kind of between end user and beginning developer with WordPress. We've never had a place to do that. So this year we're still offering our full day workshop for 101, but we're also having a 201, which is where a lot of our people here in Columbus and Central Ohio, that's where they need to be. So I'm really excited about 201. Also really excited on Saturday, so that's Friday of camp. Those are the only 2 things that will happen on Friday, is those 2 workshops all day long. And then on Saturday, what I'm really excited about, still the sessions, the general sessions, we'll still have those in a couple different tracks, but I'm also really excited about having a track for developers where you come to the track in the morning and you and a group of people are going to choose from 3 different data sets provided by opendata.org. and then build something with it. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something useful, and you're going to build it that day based on whatever information they provide. And I'm kind of really excited about that because I hear developers say, well, most of the developer tracks are boring, except we want the API talk this year. Of course, everyone wants that. But we come to network and to work together and maybe build something together during camp. So we had some developers say to us, you should maybe think about this. I would come to camp if you were doing that. So, and then we're having our first Contributors Day on Sunday, which is also really exciting.
That's a lot of good stuff, Angie. It sounds like a pretty good camp to attend.
Yeah, and we have really good barbecue, honestly.
Oh, man. Yeah, you just sealed the deal right there.
That's right, yeah.
All right. Well, then there's a pretty high likelihood that I will see you there.
For a keynote speaker right now.
Yeah.
Actually, last year Jeff was supposed to be our keynote speaker, and he backed out last minute. So I'm not letting him live it down. But I was really excited. He was going to talk about community, and everyone was going to cry, and then he didn't do it. So.
Jeff. Okay. Yeah. Shame on Jeff for that.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting down to the wire here. We've had a really great hour and learned a lot about you and just some really, really cool stuff. I got to thank you, Angie, for sharing all that great information. A couple final questions. One, we want to know, aside from the obvious WordCamp Columbus, which you're welcome to share the dates and things like that and the particulars and how people can learn more about it, but aside from that, is there anything that's on your calendar or likely to be on your calendar for 2015 where people could see you in person?
No. No. We may. So the only other two things that we sort of have kicking around. Last year we kicked around the idea of a freelancers conference. So it was around the same time that Prestige conference launched, and it would not be the same as that. It has a different kind of a different focus, a little more into the minutia of what does it mean to be a successful freelancer. So we may go ahead and do that like in November this year, but I have to get a little further into WordCamp before we do that. So, and that's it. But no, I don't have any plan. I don't have any plans to be at any other camps or anything like that. So you can find me at Twitter at Angie Meeker.
Okay. Do you participate in your local meetup group?
Yeah, I organize and run it. So I guess you could see me there.
Okay.
It's the third Thursday of every month at the Downtown Tech Center here in Columbus.
Great. All right. So that's really good. Another thing that we always like to ask is if you have any recommendations on individuals that we could ask to be on future episodes of this show.
Yeah. So I think the WordPress world needs to know more about Adam Schweigert. Have you guys had an opportunity to meet him by chance?
No.
No, I can tell by your silence. No. So Adam is I think his title now is still digital director or something like that. He's the digital director for the Investigative News Network, which is a network of nonprofit news sites that all runs on WordPress and has its own framework and own plugins, and I think they're up to like 110 sites or something like that on their network. And he is so humble. He and INN are building this really amazing product, and they're not, I mean, people in, I don't know, I just want people to know more about Adam Schweigert and the work that he's doing because it's fantastic. Like, they want to be the WordPress.com of nonprofit news.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
It's really cool.
I'll probably ask you off here how to get in touch with Adam, but thank you for that great suggestion.
Yeah.
Also, so at this point, are there any questions maybe that you were hoping we asked that we didn't, or anything just generally that you'd like to share with the audience or promote at this time?
I like the hero question. Like, if you were going to be a hero, what superpower would you have? Mine would be healing. Like, I hate seeing sick people, so when I see someone who's sick, I always wish, that God had gifted me with that I could just stretch out my hand and heal them, but it has not worked so far, so.
Oh, from a certain point of view, one could argue maybe that you have brand healing powers.
Maybe. That's what I should call myself, a brand healer. Dang, that's so good.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cheesy. I love it.
I like that a lot.
Wait, it gets even better. It gets even better. I got something else. You can, in order to heal them, you can apply a brand aid.
Oh my gosh.
Come on.
That is some like high five stuff there. That's really good. Dang.
Awesome. You're welcome. No extra charge.
That's fantastic.
No, that's really good stuff, Angie. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Best of luck to you with the conference, with your business, and everything that you do. Thank you very much for coming on the roundtable. It was awesome. Hope to bump into you at some point later this year.
Columbus, July 17th through 19th, y'all.
Woo!
All right.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Angie.
Thanks, Angie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And congratulations on being the first person to recommend a guest that Kyle didn't already have on the list.
Nice. I thought about it too.
Nice. Thanks so much, Angie. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.